Create Art Podcast, a discussion of talent. Welcome back, friends. This is Timothy Chemo Bryan with Create Art Podcast. And folks, today I have the unique pleasure of having someone in here that surprised me in the past couple of weeks. Of course, as you know, I'm by the time you hear this, I've moved on to my newest job. But this is my boss I have on here, folks. So I'm going to be on my best behavior and not drop any F-bombs or anything like that. But what I found interesting is that he is a woodworker, and some of the stuff that he's shown me, I'm looking at and going, wow, this is just, you need to have your own store and all that kind of good stuff. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring on my boss. So everyone, be nice to him. My boss, Brandon Larson. How you doing today, Brandon?
Good, Mr. Bryan. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
You got it. Well, you don't have to call me Mr. Bryan. No one else on the podcast does. That's fine. So today we're going to be talking about talent. I've got a background in theater, and we talk about talent a lot as well. When I was growing up in theater, as this kind of ephemeral kind of thing that no one can truly define. And it helped us, kind of cut people out of shows that we didn't really want in there, because we could say, well, you just don't have enough talent. But later on in my theater career, I discovered other methods and other approaches to acting, such as the Meisner method, which actually can define talent. And it is an actual kind of thing that you can look into. And when I brought this up to you, you tossed back to me something very interesting. You were like, well, let's talk about talent in terms of the definition between generations. You're a little bit younger than me. Most everybody is, because I'm older than God. But how do you define talent? And, not just in the art world, but in the working world that most of us live in.
Yeah, I think it's kind of unique when you have different generations in the workplace. You bring different experiences, different skill sets when you're talking about talent. I think it's the coolest part of kind of my experience since I've been in the workplace is the fact that most of the time I am one of the youngest, if not the youngest, employee or manager in an organization. So you really get to look at kind of what other people's experiences are with how they view talent. I think the biggest thing about so I'm a millennial. So millennials is, they're determined between 1980 and 2000. So actually I read that the millennials are the largest work force right now.
Yeah, they are right now. Yeah. Us Gen Xers, which is the generation that I'm in, we're I'm at the old end of that. I'm a 72, and I think we go from like 68, 69, all the way up to 1980. We're some of us not really aging out, but we're looking at retirement and going, "Oh my God, what am I going to do now?"
Yeah, I actually saw that baby boomers. There's about 10,000 that leave the workforce daily, every day. Yeah. So they're slowly moving into retirement. And you have this huge workforce of millennials that are now taking over the workplace. So you have not just millennials that are in the workplace, but they're in a leadership role and a management role. So now you look at, okay, the ones that are, those generations that are older than the millennials, how are they utilizing them through talent? Through how are they keeping them in companies? How are they, refining them in a leadership role? Because millennials have a different viewpoint of talent and resources that really other generations never really had that opportunity to do or to get. There's about, a million different things that you could get now in terms of resources in order to improve your talents. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the coolest things that I think I've been able to experience is if you really want to get into something and you really want to gain a new talent, there's so many different things out there that you can grab onto in order to really gain momentum and, building up a talent that you might want to pursue.
Absolutely. And here's the crazy thing, folks. Brandon manages a lot of people from different generations, and he's in charge of a lot of people from different generations. I'm a Gen Xer. I think you're responsible for some baby boomers that work in our department, and a lot of millennials that that are here with us that are your age and younger. Which it's crazy. We had somebody in here a while ago that was like 18, 19 years old, and I'm sitting there going, I've got socks older than you are. Yep. So there is an art form to managing those different generations. And like you said, the information and the opportunities and the tools are out there like they've never have been before. Can you talk a little bit about the how you discovered these tools for management that you've done? And folks, we're going to get into the woodworking because you got to see his stuff. You're going to agree with me. He needs to have a shop. I want to know how he does his stuff.
Yeah. So in terms of the woodworking, it actually started back in 2017. So we were expecting our first child, my daughter, and when your wife gets pregnant, she starts that nesting phase, right, where she wants to set up the nursery. She wants to make sure that everything's set up the way it should be, and she starts getting on Pinterest and all these other websites to get ideas about what she wants it to look like. So she sent me this photo of a batten board nursery, and she's like, "Hey, can you do this?" I'm like, I have no clue. Like, I can research, and that's what I did. So I started getting online and looking at how to do batten board, what type of tools that you need, and sure enough, there was just a lot of resources out there. So that's where I started. I took on the nursery as my first project. Really looked at what kind of tools that I needed, what type of saw I needed in order to do like a miter cut, and what the best type of nail would be. Is it better to use like an actual nail gun or a hammer and nail? So different things, really utilizing my resources, right? So as a millennial, that's the first thing I do is get online, start looking at YouTube videos, do a quick Google search of how to install batten board, and it was really fairly easy. So that's where I started. And fast forward a couple months, my wife has her own business, and she sells essential oils and stuff. So a part of her business is you can build these shelves where you hold the oils in your house. And she's like, "Hey, can you build me one of these?" And sure enough, if you go online, there's hundreds of different vendors that build these shelves. And I'm like, yeah, let me try. So utilizing the resources, I learned how to build these oil shelves, and started learning how to stain and how to get different grains in the wood based off of different types of wood you have. So really, it's just, coming from someone that really had no woodworking experience, right? Utilizing the resources that are out there and refining your skills in order to gain a new talent. So, as you get more experience, you start doing more difficult things. And that's what I think talent, really, you can really gain more talent, is not just settling for, I'm just going to keep doing the same thing, but really looking at what's the next thing that could increase my talent.
So raising the skill level of it. So, you started off as a skill level 1, you know how to cut a 2x4.5 without, losing any of your fingers. Folks, he does have all 10 of his fingers, by the way, just letting you know. Looks like he's got all the digits there and fully extended. So he's good to go on that. But yeah, getting that skill level 1 and then going up the skill levels, because the first picture that I saw is the shelf that you did.
Yeah.
And that shelf, for me, I learned woodworking. We didn't have the internet back in my day. My dad wasn't a woodworker, so most of my friends in high school and whatnot, they either went to working in shops, working on machines, woodworking, or went into the trades that way because their dad or an uncle had that kind of stuff. But you didn't. You just looked it up online, which gosh, if I had that back in the 70s and the 80s, would have been fantastic. But the way I learned how to do woodworking was I was a big guy in high school, and they had me focus lights, and they were like, you can lift lumber, you can lift big heavy things, go cut a piece of board, or go cut this, go cut that. And that's how I learned how to do woodworking. Now my stuff is very crude compared to yours, because mine is built to last for 2 weeks to get the crap beaten out of it, and then we tear it apart and go away. But like that shelf that you built, if you look at it, it's a simple design. It's a box with a line through it, with a shelf through it. But I'm wondering how many people out there can kind of take a look at that. Now that you've done it, you can take a look at it and, okay, I can put some hooks on it. I can stain it. Well, I can stain it. It doesn't have to be bare wood. Yep. I can stain it. I can put different paint swatches and all that kind of stuff on it. So, you've increased your skill level with that. And just by all the stuff that you sent me in the past couple of days, I'm sitting there and I showed it to my wife, and she goes, so when are you going to build my shelf? Yeah. So Brandon, now I got to think of new Christmas gifts.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a good point. Like, right. So the skill level 1 is really just understanding how to cut, right? There's really no math in it. There's really no degrees. Really, you're just working on how to utilize the tools, right? The basic tools. And when you start getting the bigger projects, you start understanding the math behind it, right? So looking at what type, how long the wood need to be, what degree does a miter cut need to be in order for it to have a flush connection. You know what I mean? When you start getting into crossing 2x2s and, with 2x4s, and then, you know what I mean? Like, my biggest project. So once I completed the oil shelf, then my wife was like, hey, I want to buy a desk, an office desk, because she's she has her own business. So she wants to, have a home office. I'm like, all right, well, let's start looking around, because she wanted a unique type of desk. She just didn't want like a standard, rectangle desk, and she wanted it to be long. So I got online and started looking at generic desks, and I mean, desks can run anywhere from, $400 to thousands of dollars, depending on the uniqueness of the desk. If you want it, just a rectangle, or if you want it, if you want to have like a separate side to that desk where it's more like an L-shaped desk.
And the reason I'm leaving my job is because I asked for an octagon desk, and Brandon said no. And he wouldn't give me a jacuzzi either.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, I can't give you everything. But I quickly found out that to meet her needs of this desk, it was going to cost a lot of money to just buy it, through a company. So, what I do as a millennial, I look at, all right, well, let me see if I can build this thing. And the cool thing about it is, right, for me, I couldn't have built it just by like looking at a desk or drawing it out. So one of the cool things about the resource that you have now in terms of woodworking, so it depends on, different things that you want to do. But nowadays, there's so many people out there that are like experts in building things that they provide plans online. And most of the time they're free if they're simple projects. So sure enough, I found a plan for an L-shaped office desk that my wife really liked. And I'm like, hey, does this work for you? She's like, yes, this works awesome. I'd like to change a couple of things, but at that point, my skill level had already been up to a standard that I could modify things comfortably. So I got the plans, went to, the Home Depot, Lowe's, and bought all the wood for it.
Yep.
And, saved about 75% of the cost by just building it myself. So really, I mean, none of that would have happened if I didn't, start from the ground level, work my way through, really gaining the knowledge, studying, understanding, the math behind woodworking, and really utilizing my resources that I have to gain that extra knowledge needed to continue, with higher level projects.
Right. And you were able to actually customize it for your wife because, yeah, we can go to Bare Naked Woods. We can go to different stores, and we can go on Amazon. Amazon, not a sponsor of this podcast, but soon will be.
Yeah.
Well, we can go on to all these stores and pick it up, but it's not perfect. It's not exactly what your spouse wants. It's not exactly what somebody else wants. I got a real kick out of making book clocks, which is right over my shoulder here when I learned how to make book clocks. And so I usually ask people, hey, what's your favorite book? And a lot of people go, well, it's on Kindle. I'm like, I can't make a book clock out of a Kindle. We need a hardcover, hardbound book. What do you got there? So they'll do that for me. And then I'll just go ahead and knock out a book clock, which, by the way, what's your favorite book?
My favorite book.
Don't say the Bible.
Actually, I'm more of like an audio type.
Okay, yeah. I can't do that through an audiobook,
yeah.
So never mind. I'll figure out something for you before I leave here. But, you get a certain pleasure off of doing it yourself versus you get the endorphin rush of, going onto Amazon or, going online at these stores and then hit click and then boom, it's coming out of your checking account or your credit cards. And then it's shipped to your house, the next day. And then you can put it together with tiny little screws and all that kind of jazz. But, when you get that pre-made stuff, you get it done and you're like, but it's not tall enough or it's not wide enough or it's not exactly what I want. You, on the other hand, took what your wife wanted, found the plans, adjusted them, and knocked it out.
Yeah.
And she's very happy with it. I'm assuming. I mean, if I were to get that desk, I would stay here. I'm just letting the octagon desk and the jacuzzi will keep me here. But it's got to feel great to be able to provide that for your wife.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think as a husband, right, you want to be that. You want to be that for your wife. You want to, if you have that ability. Some people don't, and that's okay. But I believe that you won't know if you don't try. Mm-hmm. So I would have never thought that I could do woodworking projects if I didn't try first. So I wasn't able to find my ability, which led to my talent until I tried it out. So that's one thing I'd recommend is there's so many things out there that people can really grab onto if they want to try something new. And it doesn't matter how old you are, how much experience you have in life. I think it's good to try new things regardless of how old you are, and really branch out and try to find those extra things that could refine that talent to make it something that, you can really enjoy throughout the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you brought up, and I want to bring this into our conversation here, no matter how old you are, and we're talking about talent between generations and how we define it. I didn't start podcasting until I was in my 40s, 30s. I kind of fiddled around with it for 65 episodes that will never see the light of day. Maybe that's what I'll give you for an audio book gift is those 65 episodes. You'll be, thank God he's left. Why did we hire him in the first place? I'll never know. But, I started that in my mid 30s, and part of my career is I was dealing, when I was living in Chicago, dealing with folks that were unemployed, with veterans that were unemployed. They were afraid of the technology. They were baby boomers. Mm-hmm. They were Vietnam era veterans, and they were looking at the computer and going, it's a passing thing. I don't need to learn that. Even in, the job that I do now, I get some folks that are of an age. I don't want to say they're old because I'm getting close to being old myself, but they're of an age that they don't want to learn the technology. And we're not saying, hey, you've got to be a cybersecurity expert or a coder or anything like that. But just learning some of the basics of technology will help you out. For yourself, are you a coder, cybersecurity expert? What's your level of skill level on the computer?
So, I mean, I have basic knowledge of how to use Microsoft software and stuff, but no, I don't have any real IT experience, cybersecurity experience. I'm logistics by trade, so really nothing. I mean, we do have, computer software that we use to track equipment systems, but in terms of the cyber firewall stuff, no, not really. It's really just understanding how to utilize the basics of a computer to make tracking logistics equipment easier for the end user.
So, I mean, when you're doing this research online, you're a basic researcher, and that's how you discovered woodworking. And now you have that as a talent that you're increasing the skill level. And let me ask you this, that first time that you cut wood, the first time that you're out there and making your first project, how confident were you that you were going to get that knocked out and have it perfect the first time?
No, not at all. Yeah. Like, that's one thing I did when I got my first batch of wood to create those shelves. I made sure I got the least expensive wood, right? Because I knew I wasn't going to get it right the first time. So that's one recommendation I would say is, if you're trying something new, if you're dealing with materials, don't go with the most expensive material, because most likely you're not going to do it right the first time. Right. So you want to be able to mess up and not let it be detrimental. So yeah, I mean, I made bunches of cuts the first time, because when you're dealing with the shelf, you got to have everything equalized, each side equal. And when you're dealing with the actual, like, the border has to be equal. And then especially that part of the shelf where if it's not equal, it's not going to sit on the border correctly.
Right.
So you really need to you need to refine your task, your simple tasks. And a simple project like a shelf can really refine those tasks. Because, like I said, this was for her business. So I've probably made close to 15 shelves since the beginning. And I've assisted other people to make shelves so they can learn. So it does start at the beginning. You want to understand the process first. Right. The generic process of a talent that you want to do, and then each day you want to work on, increasing the skill level little by little, and then you can start really expanding and enjoying it even more, because you feel more comfortable with the tools that you're using, the type of wood materials that you're using. And then you can start getting into the really uniqueness of things, like the type of stain, or, like you said, adding certain things to a piece of wood that can really make it more unique for the end user that wants to enjoy it.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I'm a big one on skulls, so I would, do a little like a branding thing in there, and throw a skull in there, or my wife's into owls. Yep. So standing it all out, but having a wood burning of an owl somewhere on there, she would be all over that. But you're not going to do that your first time out.
Exactly.
You're going to look at it and go, Ugh. So, that's fantastic. Let's move it over to management, because, yes, this is an art podcast. But as I try to tell people that are left brain, art is a fantastic thing to jumpstart your left brain and get it going. My right brain people, my artists, they need to know how to manage their time and manage their resources, because I look at it as we live in a 50-50 world. Some people are left-brained, some people are right-brained. In order to fund my passions, my projects, my talents, I got to work a 9 to 5. That's just, I'm not independently wealthy. Got to work the 9 to 5. And, I always try to insert creativity into the left brain kind of stuff. And then the left brain, the management stuff, the work stuff, I try to influence that in my right brain stuff, give myself schedules, times, tasks, our 30, 60, 90 day plans and stuff that we do for our folks. Talk to me a little bit about teaching others as that next level of talent, the next skill level, and how rewarding that is for you.
In terms of like the workplace or yeah. So like I said, I'm in a unique position in my career. I'm not really at that. So I'm not at the level now where I'm the youngest, but I'm definitely not the level where I'm the oldest. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of at that sweet middle spot where, yes, I do have experiences, but I can still gain a lot of experiences from others that are not necessarily above me. Mm-hmm. Like even, our position, right? So you're obviously a veteran. You've been in the workplace for a lot longer than I've been in the workplace, right? So
almost longer than you've been alive.
Exactly. Right. So that's a unique position, right? For me, because how often could I be in that position where I have someone that I can gain from, mm-hmm. right? That when I was still in diapers, you were in a uniform.
Yeah.
Right. So to put it in that perspective, it's insane.
He makes me feel old and smiles at the same time. And he's my boss. And that's why I love it.
Exactly. So that's what I'm talking about. It's like this millennial change, right? Of we're invading the workforce. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be some millennials that are entry level positions that are not in a supervisory role, mm-hmm. That are there specifically for working their way through an organization. And then there's someone like me that, that went through college, mm-hmm. was commissioned, and then got thrown into a management role with very little workplace experience, right? So it's a unique spot to be in for me as a supervisor, but it's also a great spot because if you have the right mentality, right? Because you can come in and say, oh, well, regardless of what my talent is, my role is going to dictate how I interact with other people, which most times will come off wrong, mm-hmm. and will come off making people upset, and they don't even want to give you the time of day because you're trying to not use your talent and your abilities, but you're just using your rank or your position, mm-hmm. right? So having the mindset of what is my ability right now? What is my talent? What do I bring to the table? What do I bring into the workplace? And then how can I gain additional talents from other people, not just above me, but that are underneath me? And I think if you have that mentality, one, you'll gain a lot more experiences and talents more quick. And then two, I think just the environment of who you're working around is going to be better for you and for others. For sure. Mm-hmm. But it is, for me at least, it's very unique, especially because if you get into the civilian sector, that doesn't necessarily happen. You don't have, someone in their 20s that are in a supervisory role, mm-hmm. you know what I mean? But in a military environment, that's one of the unique experiences that we get, that you don't really see often in other places.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, and I know one of the generalizations of a Gen Xer is that we don't respect authority. We question authority all the time. And with you being your age, me being my age, I have military background. Okay, Air Force, so it's military light. Okay, we'll just put it at that. But I kind of grew up to, hey, your boss is your boss. You respect them. You push them. You do good so that way you can push them up the ladder. One day you'll take their job and just keep on pushing that person up the ladder. Now, if I was a baby boomer, I don't know if with the background and all that kind of stuff, if that generation could, I don't want to say take orders, because I've never felt that I've taken an order from you, but to be directed by somebody of your age and your experience level. I think baby boomers, and it's a generalization on my part, I realize this, they have a harder time with that. With the different generations that you're dealing with, how do you get around those generational biases that we have, that we bring in the workplace? And, when I say workplace, I use air quotes a lot. I should do a YouTube video with my air quotes. They're famous for that. But, that workplace can be working in a theater, working in an art gallery, working in an opera, which I've done all three, crazy enough. But how do you bridge that? How do you get past all of that?
I don't think you get past it. I think you have to work through it, because I can't tell you, I can't take away how you were raised or how you've experienced certain things in a professional environment, in different organizations. Mm-hmm. So what I can do is try to understand what you've been through, mm-hmm. and see how, because every organization has a mission, right? They got a mission. They have, a culture that they want to, have employees embedded into. Mm-hmm. And then you also have your supervisors with their intent of kind of how they want you to work and be. And so I think the biggest balance that you have to, at least for me, is that I have to understand is each generation has their own beliefs, right? Their own things that are important to them in the workplace.
Yep.
For me and for millennials, we have a different viewpoint of the workplace than a Gen Xer or a baby boomer. We're more about, now it's different in the military because we don't really have a lot of flexibility compared to the civilian workplace, but millennials, they don't necessarily care about how long they work. They just want it to be flexible. Right. So they want to be able to take, they're fine working more than 40 hours a week. They just want to be able to, maybe that means they work later on in the night, becoming later, or they want to be able to take time off for things that are important to them in terms of what they believe in, what their passions are, organizations that they support, right? So you have a shift of people that are pretty vocal about things that they believe in and that they want their workplace to kind of work around what their lifestyle, which I don't necessarily think, you tell me, is that the same type of viewpoint when you're growing up? Did they have that type of mindset of, hey, they kind of expect the employer to be flexible with their lifestyle?
No, absolutely not. You got your vacation days and you got your sick days. And if you need anything outside of that, go find another job. Yeah. It was pretty cut and dry, which I find interesting because, when I was coming up, all my bosses were baby boomers and their bosses were silent generation, the traditionalists, that came from World War I and the Great Depression. So, the workforce was, but then again, once, they were of the opinion that once you got a job, you were in that job for 20, 30 years. Yeah. And that was it. That's all you did. and you like it, you lunk it, you be happy that you have a job. Gen Xers, we came up where there was more opportunities, and we're the smallest generation. So we could kind of pick and choose because the baby boomers were getting out of the jobs that we're taking of, but there's not as many of us. But now we're being invaded by the millennials, which you guys are taking our jobs, and we're getting back to our slacker ways of being rebellious against authority. But yeah, no, it was completely different. We didn't have FMLA, which is something that I took advantage of when I had my twins.
Yeah.
I took a month off, which, I called up my dad and said, yeah, I'm taking a month off. He's like, what are you going to do for months? I'm like, I'm going to help my wife and raise my kids. He's like, you know how much time I took off when you were born? What? That day. Yeah. And I was back to work the next day working third shift in a factory. And I was like, well, what good did that do you when the recession in the early 80s hit? You still lost your job.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, it didn't do me any good, did it? And I'm like, that's why, for me, kind of thanks to the millennials and being, rowdy about it, thanks to the Gen Xers, we're getting more of a work-life balance. I've noticed when I'm here, I can do that work-life balance. When I go to podcasting conferences, I just got to let you guys know ahead of time, give you, if I'm reasonable about it, if I know ahead of time, I give you guys as much, time in advance, so that way we can prep for it. And then when I'm gone and there's nobody to cover down, the work's already done. The work's done ahead of time.
Yeah.
And we rock it out that way, which is something that if millennials went back, did the time machine, went back about 20, 30 years, you'd be shocked at the kind of stuff that we had to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, millennials, right? They know what they want, and they're willing to shop around.
Yeah.
To find what they want.
And you have the ability to shop around too. Yeah. Because, back again, I'm going to be saying this all podcast. Back in my day, we had 3 TV stations.
Yeah.
So if you didn't like what was on ABC, NBC, CBS, not sponsoring this podcast yet, then you turned on the radio and you could get what you could get off of the radio. And if you didn't like what was on the radio, you were a ham radio operator, but that was your options. And now, I just paid my cable bill, my cable, internet, and phone bill, all wrapped up in one. And I've got like 500 channels that I don't watch.
Yeah.
I watch 3 channels, and one of them is it does a lot of woodworking stuff on it, and that's what I watch, and there, and that's what we got. So it's fantastic the amount of options that you guys have. Now, I know you brought in an article here for us today, and we definitely want to link to it in there. But you've got a lot of stuff underlined and all that good stuff. I'm kind of surprised now. He's a millennial, folks. He didn't bring it in a tablet. He brought it in good old fashioned paper,
of course,
with marking it up like that. I don't know if he's a millennial, folks. I think he might be a Gen Xer. I don't know, but let's talk about this article that you wanted to bring in.
So this is a Forbes article, and the title is "How Millennials Are Changing the Way We View Leadership." So really, this article kind of talks about, one, what is millennials bringing to the workforce, the workplace? How are individuals like you, the generations above us, adjusting to this huge wave of millennials that are coming in to these organizations? Because, like I said, they're the largest workforce. So companies are now at this point where they have to adjust, because if they don't, then they just don't have enough employees to fill this gap. So millennials are coming in. And like I said, millennials know what they want. So they're voicing these concerns to these companies of how they want things to be in their workplace. And this Forbes article kind of talks about how millennials view leadership, how they want to be kind of raised up in leadership. It's a different way than how it was done before. One thing that they say is that in terms of how they view leadership, let me see here. So it says the most notable change will be the way we approach and view leadership. Authoritarian leadership is out, and inclusive leadership is in. The emerging trend in leadership is a manager who directs, not commands. Long gone are the days when the boss can hold the role of a dictator, disconnected from the employees sitting somewhere in an office. Millennials even prefer the term leader rather than boss. So I think, like, and obviously I'm in the military, so I have a different kind of experience than a millennial that, you know, is working for Amazon or you know, Fortune 200 company. But they're coming in and they kind of want it to be more of a team environment. So it's not, yeah, you are my boss, but I don't want you to just boss me around. I want you to lead me in a way that gives me the skill sets that I need to continue. And I think one of the things about millennials is, like I said, we like to job hop, right? Until we find an organization that matches with our views, our culture, you know, our mission in life.
Yeah.
So it's very tough for organizations to keep millennials in the organization, because millennials, we want certain things, and if we don't find it, we're willing to move to another company. Yeah. So I think that's another struggle that organizations are trying to understand, is how can we keep millennials in our workplace without this huge turnover based off of what they want.
And, you know, even the military has had to do that as well. I always joke around here at work that, you know, I'm trying to bring it up to Air Force standards, but, you know, back in my dad's day, my dad's is a Vietnam era veteran. And he told me stories of, you know, living in tents with 50 other guys. And that's what, you know, caused me to go to the Air Force, because I, you know, 4-star hotels and dining facilities and all that good stuff. You know, I josh about it at work all the time. But, you know, when you're talking to other veterans, you know, you get somebody from the Army and they gripe and complain about living conditions. Air Force guys, we never do. We're always like, oh yeah, we stayed in a 4-star hotel. We roughed it out. Now, back in the 50s and 60s, you know, the Air Force was coming out of the Army, and it wasn't all that plush, you know. And you know, even, you know, before that, my granddads were both Army guys. Uncles are all Army guys. And compared, when I first came on this base, I'm looking around going, well, this is, you know, kind of a mid-grade Air Force base. Wait a minute, I'm on an Army base. This looks nice. Mm-hmm. There's facilities that are available. So even in the military, you've realized that you, in order to retain talent, you need to, improve the living, not only the living conditions, but also when I went through basic training, my drill instructor, and yes, it was Air Force basic training. So 6 weeks of, vacation in lovely San Antonio in summertime. Drill instructors would say, may I touch you? And you better say yes, because then they would make your life hell, and they would touch you anyways. Yep. My dad's day, if they wanted to punch you, you're getting punched, and there's not squat you can do about it. When these guys and gals that are going through basic training now don't even think about looking at somebody, if you're a male, don't even think about leering at a female recruit, or even a male recruit for that matter, because you're going to get bounced in a heartbeat. So even the military's done that to some extent. Yeah. And I think it's due to, millennials. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, they're understanding, hey, the things that we did in the past do not retain.
Right.
And now that we have this new generation, they will not put up with it. Mm-hmm. Like they will leave. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, in terms of the military, that's a great example. In the civilian sector, that stuff probably happens too. Mm-hmm. In terms of the way that supervisors would communicate with employees 20, 30 years ago compared to how they do it now with millennials. Because like I said, if they're not happy, they will quit and find a new company.
Sure.
So organizations have to put that in reality, and they have to change the way that they run business if they've run that same way for the last 20, 30 plus years, which I think that's a good thing that millennials are doing, is causing that kind of shift. But also it's important for millennials to, like I said, understand, they're coming into the workplace, but they need to understand that they don't really have a lot of talents in the workplace. They might have individual skills and abilities, but understanding that, hey, when you come into a place where you don't have that much experience, your talent and abilities can really grow based off of the individuals currently in the organization. And sometimes that might mean that you're getting education and experiences from someone that's 20 years older than you. So you have to have humility, both for the millennial and the one that's 20, 30 years older than you. I think it's important for them to have that mindset of, if I'm a millennial and I'm coming to you and I want, and I want your experiences, I want you to help train me and mentor me. I would hope that you wouldn't just look at me and say, man, he's really young, and base everything off just the fact that I'm young. If I'm coming to you in a way that I'm seeking your guidance, that's one thing that I really hope that Gen Xers and baby boomers are doing that are still in the workplace is passing on those experiences to the millennial force. Because if they're not open to that and they're not sharing that with us, we're going to lose out on so many things, and we're going to have to relearn those processes that we could have known about before those individuals left the workplace and retired. So that's an important key factor, I believe, for me. But it's also 100% up to the millennial to have that mindset coming into a new job, a new position of, hey, I'm here to grow and to learn, regardless if I'm a supervisor, right, or if I'm just an entry level employee. Because millennials are in both positions. To have that same mindset of, to the Gen Xer or the baby boomer, of being open to mentor that individual. So
absolutely. And we when us Gen Xers and boomers, when we don't pass that on, there's a huge brain drain, and they have to relearn and go through all the mistakes that we made ahead of time, and waste a lot of time over ground that's already been covered.
Yeah.
And, we're finding this out with, in the trades, which, woodworking, being a carpenter, being a plumber, an electrician, all that kind of jazz. We're, Gen Xers, we were taught, okay, you got to go to college. And, for us is, hey, we're going to get paid. And the job satisfaction is how much are we going to get paid. Nowadays, and I think this is really true of millennials, and I think you brought this up a little bit, is how is this company going to increase my talent? Okay, I've got 5 talents that I'm bringing in. Are they going to teach me 5 more talents? Or is the 5 talents that I have, are they going to raise that skill level from a skill level of a 1 to a 2 to 8 or a 9? And I think you guys are more jack of all trades. And this is going to sound weird, but if you look back at the traditionalists, the silent generation, they had to be a jack of all trades. I mean, when you had your own house back in the teens, 20s, and 30s, you couldn't necessarily call out a plumber. You had to fix it right then and there. You didn't have Walmart. You didn't have Lowe's or Home Depot. Again, Lowe's and Home Depot, not sponsoring this show, but I think once they hear it, they're going to want to give Brandon some free wood. Yeah. Use their, Brandon Larson Enterprises uses Lowe's wood exclusively.
Exactly.
That's.
I need those power tools.
You need some craftsmen, folks. If you got a Christmas list, craftsmen for them. But, I think, your generation is looking for expanding their skill set and then raising their skill level for their talents in order to better that company. And that's how you build loyalty to the company. Because again, a boomer is probably going to be at the same company for 20, 30 years. A Gen Xer, we switch jobs between 7 and 11 times. Millennials, minimum 11 to 15. And I got twin girls myself. They're 5. I'm just training them to be entrepreneurs. Because that economy is coming where it's a solution economy versus an industrial economy. Where folks are going to have to, you're not going to work for a company. You're going to work for yourself and you're going to solve problems.
Yeah. I mean, are they Gen Zs?
They're Gen Zs.
Yeah. So they're up and coming. I think the Gen Zs, I think the oldest is 20?
Yeah, they're
19
in the workforce. Yeah.
So they bring a whole different viewpoint of things, which is going to cause another shift. 10 years from now when they, when the bulk of their generation enters the workplace. But I think it's important, right? We're talking about talent. Obviously, you have talents that are outside of your job that, in my case, woodworking has nothing to do with my job,
right?
But it's still a talent that you can enjoy. And I think it's important to balance both. So you shouldn't just have a talent that's your talent should not just strictly be professional. You should have talents that you can bring to your family, that you can enjoy with your family, that you can enjoy, with your friends, that you can enjoy with others. And then you should have talents that you bring to the workplace, because those are the talents that are going to allow you to be able to do the talents that are not done at your job. And then with understanding where you are in the spectrum. So having the mindset when you come into anything of, okay, what is my ability in this current situation? And then having the right mindset of, okay, what do I need to do in order to build my abilities? Understanding who I have around me. Part of the millennial structure is, and at least in the workplace, they're more collaborative. So they want input from every level, both their supervisor to the command suite, all the way at the top of their company, down to their peers. And that's why I was saying it's very important. And I don't know if that was your case too when you were going up in your your workplace experience of when you got into your entry level position. Was it like that collaborative environment, or was it, hey, I'm coming out to get you and I'm gonna be jumping above you and you're getting that next promotion? And it wasn't really a, hey, let's come together as a team and figure out how we can solve this problem? Or was it more of, hey, I need to make a name for myself, and regardless of what that means, I'm going to make it happen?
Yeah, I think because of where I'm at in Gen X, I'm part of the older portion of Gen X, and they're even thinking about dividing Gen X into 2 portions, pre-computer versus post-computer, or Atari 2600, I guess, is where they're thinking about making a dividing line. It was pretty much, you're going it alone. You have to make a name. You have to make a big splash right from the get-go. So, you're the new guy coming in. You're going to work the 60, 70-hour work week because you're new. And it's not that you got to, the whole thing of it is, it was always explained to me, you got to put in your time. But putting in your time doesn't necessarily mean, when I was in the Air Force working on C-130s, it was go and do FOD patrol, foreign object damage. Basically, you go walk the tarmac, you pick anything up. and that's putting in your time. That didn't teach me anything.
Yeah.
Now, I luckily had some good mentors and good teachers who were also my supervisors, but they took on the mentality of a mentor kind of thing, that they would pull me off the FOD line and go, okay, well, we're going to show you how to remove and replace an AC unit in a C-130, which never fails. Well, it'll maybe fail once every 10 years. We're dealing with aircraft that was built in 1974. So because they did that, when we did have one fail and nobody knew how to do it except for me and another guy, we were the guys that, saved the day for the mission and got it knocked out and done. But if that mentor hadn't done that with me, I can spot a screw from 50 feet away in the middle of the night, but that doesn't help me replace an AC pack in a 130.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is when you get into, if you're a private, right, and someone tells you to go clean up the landing zone for debris, right, you might not even realize that there's other things out there that could really improve your skills. But I also think it's important for you to have that ground level kind of discipline, right? So if you get into an entry level position, you should be doing the things that might not necessarily make you more marketable, but gives you the ability to understand this is the entry, like this is the beginning, and be able to take that as an experience. So as a millennial, I think it's 100% needed for us to have those experiences, right? I don't think we should enter the workplace with a higher level of kind of experience that we didn't get to experience ourselves. And that's why I said it's so crazy for me, because when you get, as an officer, your first position is that, right? You're given this level of responsibility that you haven't necessarily earned in the workplace. It's more of you've done the education. So having that, you can either say, all right, I'm just going to bypass that entry stuff because I'm better than that. And most of the time you don't end up like a full successful officer. Or you can say, all right, I'm going to get down there. I'm going to get dirty. I'm going to act like I am a private, and I'm going to show my employees or my soldiers underneath me that I'm going to learn just as you're learning, because I want you to look at me and say, all right, he's done those things, regardless of that he's in a leadership role. So I think it's important to have that mindset, right? Both of understanding that sometimes that's needed because it gives you a level of perspective that you're choosing to have, compared to just bypassing it because you feel you don't need to experience it. But I also think it's important of what your mentors did, right? They took you out from that experience after you've, obviously they saw that you've had enough of it, and they said, all right, let's give you different skills and abilities to make you a better employee, or a better airman, or a better soldier.
You can say private.
Or private. Yeah. But it took that mentor, right? It took that leader, that supervisor, to pull you out from there and say, you are ready to become better. You're ready to take on additional responsibilities. And for someone that's in the workplace, right, that is in that supervisory role, that's what millennials want, right? We want to have a leader. That's why they say we don't want a boss. We want a leader that can come in and take us under their wing and mentor us. Because, I mean, from my own experience, when I come into a new organization, even in the military, I'm not about shining the brightest individually, right? I'm more about what can I do to better my internal organization, and I'll let that speak for itself. I don't necessarily need to be vocal individually about things that I do. I rather see other people be successful in the organization as a team. And that if you are being evaluated by a supervisor that is a true leader, they're going to see that, and they're not going to just care about what individually are you doing that I can see that you're just doing that's only helping you.
Right.
And sometimes if you're in that organization, millennials will take that and run with it. So I think it's important to have that mentor, that leader, like what happened with you, to look at and say, hey, sure, you're ready for the next step, and let's bring you in and let's start teaching you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I wanted to bring in one of the quotes. So one of the quotes that I tossed your way, it was from Arthur Schopenhauer. Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one can see. And for me, we've been talking talent this whole time here, but then building that skill set, building that experience in those talents leads us to genius and gives us a whole other viewpoint of life, whatever our task is, whatever our mission is. And once we have mastery, probably, I guess you can call it mastery of that talent, then that turns into genius. So for you, when I tossed you that quote, anything resonate in that with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important for us to realize that, when I hear genius, I hear like the greatest of the greats.
Sure.
Kind of almost like it's unattainable, it's unreachable. And I think that I wouldn't take it that way. I would look at it as you don't have to be the best of the best to feel as if you're doing things that increase your abilities and your talents. When you say talent hits a target no one else can hit, that might mean that you just hit something that you never thought you could hit based off of your talent. So I wouldn't necessarily see it as you're basing off of others, more of you're looking internally and saying, wow, like I was just able to do something I never thought I could do. I mean, if you told me 4 years from now or 4 years ago that you would be building a full castle bed for your daughter.
Yeah. By the way, my wife wants to know when I'm building that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Which, by the way, so quick story on that. My wife, she got a free trip to fly to Utah to, like I said, she works with Essential Oils, so their headquarters is in Utah, and she went to Utah for 3 days to go look at their headquarters and look at their farm fields where they produce all the oils and stuff. And she took our son with her. So I had time to work on this bed. So I had 3 days. She didn't know I was going to build it.
You did this in 3 days?
Yeah, she didn't know I was going to build it.
God.
So once again, I hopped online. There was like a couple plans on there. There was one like Instagram account that built a bed that was like almost identical, but not identical because I didn't want it to be like super like one for one. And she sent it to me. She's like, wow, this is awesome. And I'm like, all right, like here's my next project. But she didn't know I was doing it. So she went off to Utah, and I spent the next 3 days building this bed from scratch.
Oh my God.
And yeah, so when she got home, I surprised both her and our daughter, and she was ecstatic. But just stuff like that. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to do that, right? If I didn't have the skills. So even at that point, I would even say that was a talent that I thought I would never hit. When I started working the shelves, the basic shelves, I never would have thought that I would have been able to build a full bed, like castle bed with a roof and with siding and a window in my daughter's bedroom. Like, and that's the thing that almost like I wouldn't have been able to even see that. So I think this quote kind of talks about, you can look at it internally, but you can also look at it, you can also compare it to other people if that makes you work even harder. Mm-hmm. But for me, a genius hits a target no one else can see. 4 years from now, I would never thought I'd been able to do that.
Right.
And it just puts it in perspective if you look at it from internal.
And 4 years from now, he's going to be on the Yankee, what's that Yankee show? New Yankee Workshop with Norm from This Old House.
Yeah. Actually, I've watched a ton of This Old House. They're on YouTube. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
They're very popular on YouTube, mm-hmm. which also speaks to the testament of how this generation, not just millennials, but just the 21st century, mm-hmm. how internet has shifted everything that we do, because I highly doubt that they're as successful on the TV as they are on the internet now with their videos.
Yeah, because you got to wait for it to come on PBS.
Exactly.
The New Yankee Workshop, I don't even think is on PBS anymore. It was one of my favorite. I mean, I love This Old House. It was great. But, a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour of Norm.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. That's you're looking at stuff and going, dude, you don't have to bevel that edge at a 62-degree angle. Yeah. What are you thinking?
Yeah.
And then you look at his stuff and you're just like, oh, that'll never be me.
Mm-hmm.
4 years from now, folks, you heard it here first. It's going to be Brandon Larson's Industries. Going to be a whole new wave of, forget bare naked furniture. He's going to put them out of business. And I'll only take 3%.
3%. All right.
3%.
You heard it here first. 3%.
He agreed to it, folks. And a jacuzzi.
Yeah. I'll build you that too.
All right. Excellent. I think that's really great. One thing that I like to usually close out all my episodes with is the idea of creating more than you consume. And that was the whole idea from this podcast, from my first podcast, and continuing on into Create Art podcast was, not just going on Amazon or anything like that. There's nothing wrong with that, but actually creating stuff for folks using the talents that you have, mm-hmm. or discovering talents that you have, and creating more than you consume. Brandon, I already know how you create more than you consume with the woodworking, but talk to us a little bit about how you create more than you consume out there.
Yeah. So as a leader, I think it's important, there's self-development, but there's also mentorship. Mm-hmm. You should always be looking for areas, opportunities where you can, fill other people, in any position, any experience, even right now. So we're in the holiday season. Really look at areas where you could give back to others more than you're receiving. Mm-hmm. Really, it's a simple principle. But in the workplace, I think it's important to really ask yourself on a daily basis, what could I do, regardless if I'm a supervisor or if I'm a part of a team? Where are there opportunities where I could give to someone rather than receive? Where can I create instead of consume? Where can I assist, someone to make them better? Because if you have that mindset, one, I think you'll be happier with where you work, and two, you'll learn from that experience more than just receiving stuff from other people, and really utilizing the idea of, if I show you how to do something, or you show me how to do something, I'm going to take that and pass it to the next person that could really need that or use that to make them better. And if you have that mindset, I think you'll do well.
Absolutely. And, in the workplace, in the art world, we have this mentorship all over the place. I didn't all of a sudden, walk out on stage and become a fantastic actor. I still can't do it to this day. But the stuff that I use in my acting classes that I took, I use in the workplace every day, teaching people how to do stuff. Teaching people how to interview is basically an acting 101 class is what I do. Everything that I learned in that acting 101 class is just breathing and visualizing and then going out and doing it and just being bold and going, you know what? It's an interview. If you blow it up, no one's going to shoot you in the head. Go have fun with it. And that really relaxes people. Yeah. And, it helps them in that process. My big thing is shake hands and kiss babies in that order. If you do it the other way, you're going to get arrested. But it's just, being comfortable with yourself and, and being confident in your skills and abilities and your talents.
Yeah.
All that.
Yeah. I would like to also say, right. So looking at understanding what you can bring to the table. Mm-hmm. If you look at your experience here, mm-hmm. right, your skill set, your experiences, your ability to push that and teach others isn't probably the most valuable thing that they receive here, mm-hmm. Other than their treatment that they get medically. But being able to take someone that, that hasn't had any job in the past other than a military job, that you can come in and say, hey, let's work on this. Let's refine this task. Let's look at, personal experience that you've had to bring to the table to make you more marketable, to get them jobs when they leave this program. I think it's a perfect example of how you use talent, right? How you use your own talent to assist other people that need it, that need those experiences, that need that mentorship, that you've been able to do so successfully here the last 5 years. So I just wanted to say on record, just how important it is, because you could have easily sat back and said, okay, well, how can I help you with certain things? Okay, well, let's work on one thing, but you know what they need and you know how they can become better. And you take that extra effort, which is something that, someone that doesn't have anything or is clueless about what to do next can really be at peace about their next chapter, mm-hmm. using your talent and your abilities. So I think it's a perfect example of what you've done here to really increase the organization, make the organization whole, but also make individually the soldiers that lead this program successful when they get out.
Well, I'm going to flip it right back on you here, because I'm not going to let you leave without with that. So the only reason that I can be as successful as I have been is by having somebody that is open to new ideas, somebody that is willing to learn, add new skills, add new talents to their quiver, to their toolbox. Somebody that can manage things, because, quite honestly, I can have 50 projects going on at the same time and they can get out of hand really quick. But with your organizational skills and talents and your ability to manage multiple generational levels, that is not only a skill, but it's an art form, because you're juggling with people, and what you do is you get the best out of every individual on the team. And if we don't have somebody in a leadership role that is getting the best out of everybody on the team and is in a collaborative mindset that you are, we'll be successful in our own little area, but the team is not going to be successful. And really the big thing here is I have one piece of the puzzle on our team. And I'm the guy at it. But after I leave, I know I've tossed all the knowledge that I have. Well, 95% of the knowledge. I'm not going to give you everything, because, I got to stay relevant.
Exactly.
I'm getting old.
Yeah, you got to stay marketable.
Let me tell you. But you've been able to utilize everyone's strengths to make a team that, we can really accomplish our mission. And when we accomplish our mission, whether it be on the HR side of the house, mm-hmm. Making sure people get paid on time. Because I'll tell you one thing, if you get paid on time, Tim's not a happy camper.
Oh, yeah.
Tim's got bills to pay. Yep. Did that happen to me? I got twin girls that like to eat, mm-hmm. and now I got to build them these beds. Oh, God, thank you.
Two of them. Yeah.
I'm going to make it a bunk bed. Just build one and be done with it.
Hey, I'm sure there's a plan out there for that too.
There's got to be. There's got to be. And you'll find it and
I
I'll
will.
build it.
Yeah.
But with your talents in all of that, in the management realm, which quite honestly, I don't have all of those talents. And it's not being able to sweet talk people into stuff. It's being able to relay the mission and keep everybody focused on, hey, this is what our mission is. This is why we're here every day. I mean, if we're all independently wealthy, would we be at home? I would.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, I'd be at home doing crazy stuff. But since we're not all independently wealthy, we need people like you in the position that you're in to make sure that us left brain people stay on task. Us right brain people, us artsy fartsy guys, really stay on task, because sometimes the artist can be like herding cats.
Yeah.
But then there's some herding of cats that happens around here too that you make sure happens, and we're all on point. And so thank you for doing that for as long as you have. You've been here about, 2 years. Yeah.
2 years.
Wow. It's been a fast 2 years. And sure, folks, in 2 years, well, in a year and 11 months, I didn't know he was a woodworker. And now I'm finding this out as I'm leaving. Shame on me. I had an episode in the old podcast where I've got one of my old students from my theater days, taught him how to make basic boxes. Mm-hmm. Just gave him that skill. Here's a basic box. Here's how you make a basic box. He's in the Navy now, unfortunately. Works on P2s. Their engines are upside down. They're 130s with engines upside down. But he does woodworking. Not on your level, but about a half step down from where you're at. And as a C-130 mechanic, woodworker, you'd think, those two don't mix. They mix really well, because you're working with your hands on a piece of machinery on wood. So passing the skills on to others is a thing that we all need to do. And I've learned from your management style how to better do my management style in the future, and keep on passing those lessons on to everybody.
Of course. Yeah. Well, awesome. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
It's my first podcast.
Folks, you too can be on a podcast. Just get in touch with me at createartpodcast@gmail.com. Unlike Brandon, who just came across the hallway here and said, hey, I want to be on your podcast. But folks, definitely be brave, be bold. If you have something that you've always wanted to do, be like Brandon. Started it up just a couple years ago. And you'll see in the show notes what he has accomplished, what he's done. And be careful if you show it to your wife, because then she's going to want you to build it. But you'll have to get a hold of him to get the plans and all that kind of good stuff. But be on the lookout. Brandon Enterprises, sponsored by Lowe's and Home Depot. Brandon, thank you again for being on our show.
I appreciate it. Thanks again.
You got it.